I asked for one normal week. I know that was asking a lot of 2025, but no, the first week of 2026 just had to double down. I take one singular Monday off, and suddenly the US invades Venezuela, is threatening to invade Greenland, kidnaps the leader of Venezuela before murdering a queer woman in Minnesota. Elon Musk's predictive keyboard has gone full, patriarch, generating sexual abuse imagery of children and women freely, while the idiot Guardian acts like a prompted apology from a chatbot counts as an official statement from one of the richest man on earth. And the Lyrian CEO doubled down on his idiocy because it's January now, and he said he'd come back then. I was gone for a week. And welcome to Muttday Morning News. I'm the titular Mutt Fen. Now let's get to some news. I'll be completely frank, I don't really want to cover all of the news of the last 2 weeks that should generally belong in my obedience training section. What do I even say about the US military kidnapping a foreign leader under the pretense of that imbecilic fentanyl is a weapon of mass destruction executive memo, then charging him with cocaine trafficking? What do I even say about Jonathan Ross of Immigrations and Customs Enforcement? Before that, Customs and Border Patrol of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security executing a queer woman, Renee Nicole Good, in her car while her dog, wife, and children's toys watched, and the news media intentionally ignore her wife for the opinion of her late husband's father, who hasn't spoken to her in years. Should I even point out that she was murdered blocks from where the Minneapolis police murdered George Floyd? What do I even say about the military murdering Venezuelans for alleged drug crimes before suddenly jumping onto fucking piracy to such a degree that the US government and military have now stolen 5 oil tankers, including one Russia purported to have laid claim to and defense of? Didn't stop the US military, but whatever. What do I say about the revolution in Iran, caused in a long, blood-soaked chain of reactions by the dictatorial monsters the US government threw in charge the last time a Republican charged off to murder brown people for oil, and the Democrats wagged their collective finger while rubber stamping the budgets and continued the same war when they came to power? What do I say about Keith Porter, the black man ICE murdered in LA on New Year's, who no one even reported about for days until Nicole Good's murder? What about the Venezuelan couple ICE attempted to kill in Portland, Oregon last week, and who the news have simply stopped covering because of their seeming purported criminal records? That doesn't make attempting to murder them okay. Especially at a fucking traffic stop. What about Silverio Vilgas Gonzalez, the man who the still unnamed ICE agent murdered in Chicago in September? What about the hundreds, thousands of immigrants in concentration camps across the country being tortured to death? What do I even say about the Minnesota Door Dashers being hidden inside people's homes after ICE tried to entrap them? What about all the reports out of Minneapolis which paint a very clear picture of a city quite literally under siege by its own federal government, with closed schools, reporters admitting to spiriting their families away from the city, of armed thugs literally murdering women in the streets? Do I even bring up how thus far only Chad Loader and the fucking Daily Mail have reported on how the DHS agents, not DOJ, not even the barest pretense of justice, but no, the Department of Homeland Security's unnamed, unmarked, unidentified agents removing evidence from the home of the man who murdered Renee Good? Or how the federal government has simply taken over the entire investigation. Oh, or the fact that he filmed the murder himself. What about the Telegram reporting Trump has actually ordered special forces commanders to begin developing plans for invading Greenland? I need to point out that's not even like a group able to hold land. I mean, he's literally trying to get SEAL Team 6 commanders to figure out how to take over an entire country with a single squad of... Here's what I will say. Jonathan Ross murdered Renee Nicole Good. He recorded it. The U.S. government published his snuff film through Alpha News. Then the vice president reposted it, demanding that all U.S. citizens watch it as it exonerated Jonathan Ross because a woman was nice to him. She literally... This woman's last words, which were recorded in Jonathan Ross's fucking snuff film before he shot her, were, "I'm not mad at you." And then he shot her in the face 3 fucking times in front of, again, her wife and dog. Neither Democrats nor Republicans have even had the spine to condemn the cold-blooded murder, because that's what it was, and because Democrats are also fucking fascists, because they profit off of this. They've always been like this. You have to accept that. I'm sorry. You cannot claim this is not what the United States are. This is exactly what we have always been. This is exactly what Donald Trump, Stephen Miller, Mike Johnson, both George Bushes, and Reagan always promised. This is also exactly what Hakeem Jeffries, Michael Schumer, Sarah McBride, Bill and Hillary Clinton, and yes, even Obama, Biden, Harris, and especially Gavin Trump 3.0 goddamn Newsom have always promised to do exactly this. Stop pretending this isn't what the U.S. is and has always, frankly, been. Our cops are literally modern-day slave catchers. That's not an exaggeration. American policing standards were developed from and directly trace their roots to, in fact, many of the first cops were slave catchers. This isn't a new thing. The problem is you need to stop, all of us, I mean this especially to the Dems, stop pretending that there was some prelapsarian thing to return to and stand up for a different, better, less evil future. And now that I've pissed off every shitlib and MAGA dumbass, as well as myself, and worked through some of the shit I missed in the last 2 weeks, let's see about some slightly better news. Apparently Jared Polis, the gamer, yes, G-A-Y, yes, he did actually used to call himself that, governor of Colorado, cannot, just can't go a damn week without being an utter embarrassment to my state. A few weeks back, I covered how he recommended folks follow a pair of fascists with a thing for eugenics, white supremacy, child abuse, and one of them was even had some fun zoophile spice thrown in there too. Which is, of course, why, since I was gone for a week, I have 2 instances of his idiocy. First, some necessary background. Tina Peters was an election clerk who attempted, by her own account, to prove there was totally voting fraud in the 2020 election, because yes, of course, she's a Trump voter and hardcore MAGA, by giving some dude from MyPillow access to Coloradan ballots and voting machines. That's not an exaggeration or an allegation, by the way. She was found guilty on 7 counts in 2024. 3 counts of attempting to influence a public servant, as well as 1 count each of conspiracy to commit criminal impersonation, first-degree official misconduct, violation of duty, and failing to comply with the Secretary of State, for which she was sentenced to I don't know why everyone keeps saying 9 years. She was only sentenced to 8.5. Trump pardoned her for all federal crimes on the 11th of December. But since she wasn't charged with or found guilty of any federal crimes, only state crimes, it did nothing. So, in addition to the illegal withholding of childcare funds from several blue states, Trump vetoed, in retaliation to not just letting her go for no reason, H.R. 131, a bipartisan-supported bill to pay for a yet unfinished water pipeline in Colorado. The bill has since failed to get the necessary House votes to override the veto, and let's be honest, the Republicans in the Senate never would have let it through even if the House had. Naturally, that means Polis has started doing what he's very good at, calling Peter's sentence harsh, and that he might just reconsider releasing her as he heads into his final year as Colorado governor, with the pathetic, gibbering thrusts of fascist appeasement that we've come to loathe from the man. Remember how he just loves sucking off goddamn brainworm Bobby? I continue to maintain, I think this man just really went off the deep end when people called him a COVID czar because he did the bare minimum of making sure Coloradans didn't die to a fucking global plague. Let it not be said, I'm here for imprisonment. Even Polis's framing makes it clear he, like most shitlibs, does not see the justice system as a method of helping those who've made wrong turns in life, which we like to pretend that it is, and I would like a justice system that, actually did that. It's not, but it's actually just a distinct ecosystem to keep people away from normal and healthy society, which obviously, since Polis is trying to manufacture consent, the elderly, Peters is 68, shouldn't be subjected to. Never mind their attempts to usurp free and fair elections. I am actually an abolitionist. I'm just of the opinion that if we're letting folks out of jail, the brown people in there for nothing but drug possession deserve to go free long before the woman who tried to bring about overt Christian fascism 4 years earlier than it actually happened. But Polis is always an embarrassment. So, 2 weeks ago, he also made this statement after the U.S. invasion of Venezuela. I'm glad he's done pretending to be anything but a white man first and foremost, but wow, does this read like he's replaced his entire brain with a Palantir chatbot? I'll remind you that, yes, Palantir is quite literally 2 blocks away from the Denver Capitol, so they're right there. They're right there. At least he didn't pull a Michael Bennett and claim ICE is only inflicting mass human suffering and doling out murder on a near constant basis because of reckless weaponization, as though this isn't exactly what ICE has always been for, and which Bennett has repeatedly voted to give them yet more money to do. Reminder that this man wants to replace Polis as Colorado governor by being even more of a fascist lickspittle than his predecessor. So, hey, let's primary this fucker because he has at least one real opponent in Phil Weiser. I'm calling this a very special segment, which is to say I didn't come up with a name for it. But in the spirit of improving all of our moods, I'd like to welcome you to a very special segment where I don't even talk after this bit, but I think will help raise your mood at least slightly.
I have told the clergy of the Episcopal Diocese of New Hampshire that we may be entering into that same witness. And I've asked them to get their affairs in order, to make sure they have their wills written. Because it may be that now is no longer the time for statements, but for us with our bodies to stand between the powers of this world and the most vulnerable.
Anyway, let's head into Hound's Bite. Yeah, no, I'm not actually going to start talking about Grok. First thing, I mostly just wanted to warn you that, hey, we're talking about Grok today, so yeah. It'll just be at the bottom of this. I'm warning you ahead of time after getting your mood high with the ice being idiots and getting kicked out of places, so that's a thing. You've been warned. So, Discord had a fun week while I was gone. First, they filed a confidential IPO. I've been made aware that folks don't always know what that means. Initial public offering, it's the intent to be sold on the stock market and traded publicly instead of private investment firms. It's kind of a big deal for especially tech shit. Discord has been privately owned since its launch in 2015, but they're looking to go public this year, with most reports suggesting a proper IPO, which is to say not hiding what they think they should be valued at, in late February or March. The confidential bit is the part that means that whole not disclosing how much they think they're worth. Last evaluation was back in 2021 by Microsoft for around 10 to 12 billion when they were threatening to buy Discord, and Discord went, no. There are some expectations that it's going to be closer to 15 to 25 billion, with some investment reports predicting even more favorable numbers if, can you guess, they hang some AI bullshit on Discord. See, investors actually do what that one singular, completely falsified documentary convinced generations of credulous USians that lemmings do, which is to say, follow each other off cliffs. It doesn't matter to most investors if Gen AI is real or even a bubble, quite frankly. What matters is that it will get other investors to invest, thereby increasing the price. So they'll just keep supporting Gen AI things because of a weird feedback loop that is essentially the incestuous cousin to the confirmation bias. Naturally, that would be why Discord launched a Gen AI survey only 2 days after the news broke about their IPO, looking to see how their users would react to the kind of AI tools public investors will hand them absolute buckets of money for implementing. Who cares if it's to the detriment of those actual users? Here's where I would have linked you to that survey, but as you can probably guess, the community's response was surprisingly swift and effective. It's almost like we're all living through a techno-fascist autocracy, and when given an opportunity to even barely be heard, or at least think that we're being heard, we're really primed to just take it. The survey was pulled offline in less than a day, or like I said, I'd link it in the description. Not going to say that's necessarily a good thing. Discord's new CEO since 2025 has been working very hard to destroy most of the platform's goodwill, and I mean, they're still headed for an IPO, so I'm glad that I've been looking into hosting forums on my website, that's fen.gay. I guess I should spend some more time in the coming weeks working on that a little bit harder. If you're on any social media with a high enough gamer density, I suspect you saw something about Razer's weird waifu jar at CES last week, but I also suspect you might not know exactly how weird it gets, because I didn't realize, and weird AI crap is kind of the stuff that I cover the most of, and this was pretty weird for me. Project Ava is one of Razer's developmental ideas they label all of their developmental programs as Project something, whether they become a reality or not. That's just a running theme. It is rather fundamentally like crypto, NFTs, the metaverse, and generative AI in general, a product looking for a market as opposed to a product looking to fill an actual market need. Yes, of course it's got Gen AI built into it. It's Razer. What trend wouldn't they jump on? For goodness sake, they were one of the only people who were early to the transphobia trend of the the late 20-teens, the post-2016 era. I saw it and went, oh, a jar you can put an image in because it's an interesting hologram display. That's really cool. A desk tchotchke that you can just display 3D models or 2D images as a hologram is the kind of stuff that a streamer would kill for. And I would even fully expect like any office worker would just go, yeah, that's a cute way to display my family pictures at work if it weren't, Razer colored. But that's not what this is. Because you can't, well, directly control what the model in the jar is. And yes, I'm going to continue to refer to it as the jar. See, what I'm describing is almost exactly what this tech was originally built for, because it seems to be operating on something very similar to the lamp sort of projection thing Disney debuted a few years back at their D23 Expo, which was this little like lamp thing that had a interesting way of projecting a live filmed cast member. But Project Ava didn't start in a waifu jar. No, it started as an AI gaming coach when Razer showed it off at last year's CES, where every reporter who wasn't already sucking off AI described it as, in no uncertain terms, distracting, unhelpful, and actively harmful to socializing while gaming. Or, communicating with other players. Before being sealed in the jar, last year's Project Ava yapped incessantly, often blocking important in-game sounds, and generally provided the most generic advice possible when it was connected to the gameplay at all. But surely, I hear you asking already, the jar must do something besides display what I'm not entirely convinced isn't just Grok, aka XAI, aka Mecha Hitler's off-brand Misa Amane avatar, Ani, with different hair and a cyberware outfit reminiscent of those definitely not N95 masks Razer tried and never got certified as anything near an N95 mask before, still marketing them as such. Hey, remember how the FCC just took that out of their hide? I miss having a functional government. Yes, the jar does have other additions besides the new femme model, Kira, and the mask model, Zane, who looks like a Giga Chad meme with snake tats, really playing into the what an out-of-touch Gen X executive thinks women want trope, to the degree that I fully expect a porn for women joke. Engadget said they saw the Zane model in action, but didn't really include any pictures or video, no one else actually even mentioned interacting with the Zane model, only the Kira one. So all I really have to go off of is Razer's remarkably wooden trailer. It makes if you remember it, that famously inhuman Anthem stage demo where they tried to have in-game banter look like a Shakespearean soliloquy. Reporters claim the mask model was theoretically available at CES, though, like I said, no one seems to have actually interacted with it or wanted to do so, but I'm unclear if that's because all the reporters at CES were dudes and Razer sat them down with the specifically Grok-powered Kira model, but I'm not saying that's not what happened. Razer has promised the jar will be getting more avatars, including League of Legends Espathlete, who is notably sponsored by Razer, Faker, and the K-pop idol Sao, as well as the disembodied orb that was the 2025 version. But don't you worry, the waifu jar is still a video game coach. Yep, the only thing more embarrassing than needing Sony's pathetic AI ghost to play a game for you, needing Grok to tell you how to play the Battlefield 6 tutorial shooting range. Yeah, that's how they demoed this thing's game coaching. Made journos play around on a shooting range on a fixed game, and the bot still couldn't identify the game or what guns the player was using outside of the specific setup screen where it could read the text. It was, however, very good at telling Antonio of The Verge that he should avoid dying next time. Again, while playing in the shooting range. Oh, also he hadn't died. It just misread what was going on the screen because it's not intelligent or aware or functional or any of those things. But since they've developed a fun game coach, which obviously means it needs to be able to look at the screen, what else can it do since agentic servants have become such a thing? Well, obviously, Razer turned their turned their disembodied AI, which they put into a waifu jar, now into also an agentic servant, which they set up to read through Steam sales. Because apparently it's very difficult to look at a Steam sale and decide what to buy. I need to stress, it wasn't searching through Steam. It was quite literally just, they had the Steam winter sale open on the screen behind Battlefield 6, so you could alt-tab to it. The generative AI bot would just look at the screen, and when you asked about things, it would recommend games from that screen, which got real fun when the Verge reporter started interacting with it. See, when the Verge got to the Steam page portion of the demo, Ava jumped straight into sales mode without being prompted, acting as if the reporter had activated the jar's, well, technically always-on microphone and asked for a game suggestion. Stepping right past the privacy concerns, since Razer doesn't even pretend the jar's mic isn't always on, they just say it won't respond unless you're pressing the hotkeyed macro to activate the AI listening to your push to talk, basically. Well, except at the demo when, again, it just straight up ignored that and recommended a game to the Verge reporter. Fun thing about that, whereas Shack News and Engadget both showed videos of the recommendation feature, they were very careful to not show the actual Steam page. The Verge was not so kind to Razer. See, Ava, again, unprompted, recommended Fallout 76 as it was on sale for 65% off at $51. Anyone who knows anything about Fallout 76 knows there's no way $51 is 65% off, and there's no way anything would be recommending Fallout 76, well, without some sort of incentive. Fallout 76 was on sale and was on the front page of the Steam Winter Sale. It wasn't 65% off at $51. It was 90% off at $3.99. They also included just the full image, so there is literally nothing that was on sale at that time for either 65% off or $51, because LLMs don't hallucinate. They very specifically change information in what they're seeing so that you cannot prove where the information came from. The goal is not to provide accurate information, but fast information that confirms what you already assumed. And since in this case it doesn't care that you can see that the numbers are wrong, it was trying to get you to let it buy it for you so you didn't look at the screen. Okay, let's see. I've mentioned the always-on mic. I've mentioned the game coaching, which admittedly still amounts to constant inane chatter blocking out in-game sound cues. I've mentioned the version at CES that was run off Grok, though I did fail to mention it was more than a week into Grok's quest to provide every monster on Earth with CSAM. Oh, and Razer did claim users will be able to swap out Grok for another LLM of their own choosing. I feel like I've forgotten something, besides interrogating how on earth that system's supposed to work. Oh, actually, two things. First, the way the jar watches your screen, I mentioned that, didn't I, was almost assuredly going to flag some anti-cheat systems, especially as more online games demand reasonless kernel-level access, Valorant and Highguard, to name a few. Though, how actively detrimental the advice the jar can provide is... Remember running off Elon Musk's predictive keyboard? And that twit had to buy power-leveled Path of Exile and Diablo 4 characters after his shit-ass Elden Ring build got him laughed off of Twitch. I'd personally say, let them in. They'll assuredly play worse with the jar coaching them. Second, on top of the always-on mic, the jar also has a camera, which I'm just going to assume is also always on, because why wouldn't it? The entire point of this is to just collect data on you. See, instead of accepting that no one wanted an idiot machine godhead as an esports coach, actually, for my WoW players, Razer also thinks This can replace your raid leader. Go watch the trailer and you'll see why that's such bullshit. Razer kept pursuing their sunk cost fallacy by stapling all the other latest AI selling points onto it, for which it obviously needed a camera. Yeah, I'm maintaining that's actually just because they're just harvesting your data, but... And, you know, did I mention it also wants to access any webcams you have plugged into your PC too? Yeah, on top of the bad gaming advice, the waifu jar claims it can act as an agent, read 1950s secretary who runs the life you're too busy and important to organize or live yourself, minus the need to sexually harass said secretary. See, again, the current version is powered by Musk's predictive keyboard, so it's always flirting with its owner/master to the degree the Verge reporter was actively uncomfortable and the Engadget reporter thought it was cute. By comparison to the AI companion so often piloted by exploited gig workers in the global south, not LLMs, which some people have taken to marrying. So, matter of degrees of discomfort there, I'd say. Yeah, if you want a jar with an uncontrollable wide-range microphone, webcam, and constant need for internet access to really badly coach you at video games, fail to help you buy games on Steam, and make uncomfortably flirty comments to you while claiming to somehow organize and run your life, you can sort of pre-order Project Ava now. Razer won't tell you how much it will cost or when it will release beyond probably 2026, probably Q4 2026, but you can currently give them $20 right now at this moment to reserve one, and totally not because none of their or anyone's AI developments are profitable. Fun fact, last week, Dell, yes, Dell of all, announced their AI PCs aren't selling. Headlines tried to spin it as AI wasn't the deciding factor for consumers or wasn't directly a selling point and they were just tightening their belts, but the actual Dell statement shoots that right in the foot. Most of my information from this, by the way, came from The Verge and Engadget's coverage, as most other sites were pulling from their coverage or from Razer's press page, which is why so many are claiming that the jar actually does have 5 models as opposed to the 2 that were actually present and the other 3 that they swore would totally be in there at some point. Please check out both their coverage and go check out Razer's actual trailer because it's so bad, and frankly, I bet a bunch of you need a laugh right now. They can't all be depressing or stupid stories, so here's a fun one. You might know my site is fen.gay because I learned about a year ago I could get a .gay as a top-level domain and jumped at the chance. See, .com, .co.uk, .org, even .gay are owned by companies, which are paid a yearly fee to operate the infrastructure backing, well, domain registrations. Well, the dotMeow Foundation, that's dot spelled out, is a Belgian nonprofit running a Kickstarter, link in the description, to launch the dotMeow domain when new top-level registration opens later this year. The fun bit is that as a nonprofit, the dotMeow Foundation has already laid out their plans for how any profit is to be spent. Actually, quick aside, being a nonprofit only means profit, the money left over after expenses, operating costs, employee wages, and the like, isn't paid out to investors as dividends. They're still perfectly capable of gaining profit. They just usually drop it onto their executives instead as bonus pay. That's how nonprofit grift mills like the Duty Legacy, the Susan G. Komen Foundation, the Lemkin Institute, that's how their grifts work. dotMeow should not face similar issues as they've already laid out how they plan to spend their profits, assuming that there are any, which is in directly supporting LGBTQIA+ communities, orgs, archives, community building, and in supporting small businesses in their area as well. The most fun part about this story is dotMeow's graphic designer and social media manager, better known as, well, a foundational author in the mexploitation space, specifically of Nexus Alpha, Ella Bambust. The project has until February 17th to raise $93,000 or so in USD. Obviously, it's actually done in euros. But seeing as they've already raised more than 85,000, they're well on their way. Plus, by the way, the second backer level for about 33 USD includes a 1-year dotMeow registration voucher, which, even discounting the other rewards, is less than the registrar fee most places will charge you for a .gay URL. Maybe give it a look in if, like me, you're worried about that whole Discord IPO thing we discussed earlier. Okay, now we're getting to the real Grok story. Sorry. Grok, the Azathoth ex machina pet godhead of Elonguous Muskrat, is at it again, or I suppose since I've been gone for a week, has been at it for almost 2 weeks. At the end of December, Musk's predictive keyboard added a fun new trick. Except it was a trick the billionaire who could literally end world hunger for less than 5% of the wealth he gained in 2025 alone tried launching about 10 months ago. The ability for Grok to edit any and all images on the Hell site. Naturally, it was instantly used to create child abuse imagery, as well as strip the clothing off of women the world over, dropping many into requested swastika-patterned micro-bikinis. But since we live in hell, not only has no government actually taken Musk to task for now naming himself the world's largest purveyor of child sexual abuse imagery and adult sexual abuse imagery, stop calling it non-consensual porn, you cowardly idiots. Porn is a creative work of human expression. It cannot be non-consensual. Same reason why we call CSAM, CSAM, not the vile term kitty porn, and why revenge porn as a phrase has always been used to defang men posting the nudes or videos of their exes in order to hurt or break them. There. Grumping about words having meaning. Wait, hang on. Bitch is a slur used to remind women or failed men that you see her place as a subhuman creature used only for breeding and an implicit threat to put her in her place. Stop fucking using it if you're not a woman referring to yourself. Fuck you. Where was I? Oh, right. Words have meaning, rant aside. Despite Elon Musk now being, again, the largest purveyor of child and adult sexual abuse imagery the world over, their own metrics show an average of 8,000 image edit requests an hour, with, yes, the top requests including put her in a micro bikini, as well as other even less pleasant requests like forced smile and blood, as one Guardian article put it. Visa and MasterCard continue to process payments for Grok despite the mountains of child and adult sexual abuse imagery generated on the site every hour now for nearly 2 weeks. Did I mention ex-users immediately prompted Grok to do the same to Renee Nicole's corpse freeze-framed from Jonathan Ross's snuff video that JD Vance shared? Yeah, that happened. A lot. No, I'm not showing you it. When the story started developing, I expected to focus on how every artist almost left X 10 months ago, the last time Musk tried to make all images Grok editable before backpedaling and offering an option to opt out, which obviously the default was to assume consent, like the sex pest Musk has always been, but whatever. I was going to talk about how artists were finally giving up on X, but of course, many realized instead they could get around the edit demon by posting their art as GIFs or short videos. Within a day, Musk announced that those too would be editable by Grok in the near future, aiming for this month. I don't believe it's been done yet, but frankly, I don't go to the Nazi bar if I can help it, so I don't know. But then the CSAM took off, and the artistic discussion kind of fell by the wayside. X probably could have kept going like that, since Visa and MasterCard have again made it very clear they do not give a shit about processing payments for CSAM, even after this was allegedly, it wasn't paywalled. It wasn't at all, but we'll go over that too. So long as it's Elon Musk and Jeffrey Epstein are the ones making it. Plus the whole Trump's commerce officials making it very clear to our trading partners across the planet, any attack on USian companies or sanctions against US Gen AI companies would lead to more retaliatory tariff deals. But we're more than a year into the Trump presidency, and the rest of the world has started to realize they don't need the U.S. as a trading partner. The U.S. is an import-based empire run by a sundowning, hateful old man, and it's effectively killed every allyship it had maintained for decades. So most of them have kind of said fuck off. In fact, late last night / early this morning, Malaysia and Indonesia were the first two countries to outright ban X over Grok CSAM generation, and their reasoning was so pathetic because they just wanted users to be able to report the images, and that's not even a thing that they can do. Remember when Tumblr self-immolated after instituting a really hasty adult content detector, which was more likely to block images of Godzilla than a dude's penis, all because of a single CSAM report to Apple? Yeah, despite myriad reports of the same, the X app is still up on Apple and the Google Play Store, because of course it is. There's also an incredibly credulous report that Grok, a chatbot with no will of its own, like all regurgitative AI, apologized for generating literal mountains of CSAM and adult women's sexual abuse imagery. That was, of course, because it was asked to generate an apology by a random X user, which it provided. And then multiple news organizations acted like it was an official statement from X itself. Reminder, if you actually contact any of X's primary contact systems, like emails, even their PR department, you still get auto message replies that say nothing but legacy media lies, sometimes with a poop emoji. That's been going since 2022. I don't understand how this company still exists, but whatever. Let me lay this out very clearly. An X user used a predictive keyboard run by poisoning black communities around Memphis, because yes, that's where the Colossus data center that Musk has set up to run Grok AI is built. And yes, it has demonstrably been poisoning the people of Memphis, specifically a black neighborhood, for years, to write a corporate-style apology, and idiots reported it like a person was conciliatory for their actions. Really, the only difference between this and reporting on someone programming Je pense donc je suis into the writer automaton, Pierre-Jacques Droz, built in 1774, is the sheer scale of carbon emissions the newer masturbatory statement produced. Oh, and no, by the way, just in case it need to be said, locking the CSAM generator behind a paywall is not blocking it, but that's also not what happened. See, if you reply to an X post adding Grok asking for an image edit, that will cause it to fire off a comment about paywalls. Unless, you're already paying for it, and then it'll just generate your CSAM for you. However, if you just click on the edit button on every image on the site, or use the dedicated Grok app with no paywall, you can still do exactly the same thing. The EU, Canada, and UK have been quietly considering and sort of discussing slightly openly X bans. There was a fun detail that I caught, though. Bluesky has spent every day since January 9th, with an even larger surge on, last night, verifying government and journalist accounts from all over Europe, the UK, and Canada. I wonder why. We've only got one vet visit story this week, mostly because it's a Bobby Kennedy thing. What do you want from me? I had to read the USDA Dietary Guidelines for this story, and normally that would be an ordeal. The guidelines get released every 4 years. Well, theoretically 5 years, but it's hit or miss with administration changes. The guidelines that were released for 2020 to 2024 were more than 150 pages long, with significant breakdowns of what foods to avoid or focus on for different dietary groups based on age, chronic diseases, other things that might impact whatever your dietary restrictions are. It had details on how to balance actual nutrients and how to avoid calorically dense but nutritionally limited foods like, the meat and protein that Americans have a very bad habit of eating far too much of. It's also why it used the My Plate system. Everyone has been focusing on the new guidelines, specifically a line about beef tallow. because it has this thing about, yeah, you can use beef tallow as a safe fat for cooking options, despite the fact that it's remarkably high in saturated fat. On its face, that's nuts. This is like the whole invading Venezuela for U.S. oil companies, despite those same U.S. oil companies not wanting to add more oil to the global market. If you haven't heard about that, TLDR, U.S. oil companies are actually mostly exporters now, since the U.S. has been moving away from using oil for fuel, and we're behind everyone else. But yeah, we've been exporters of oil for years. The market is so oversaturated in oil and so undersaturated in oil buyers, they're barely turning a profit based on the oil they already have. So adding more actually is the last thing US companies want. Sure, the beef lobby wants to sell more products, but this is pure brainworm Bobby's make America healthy again puppy piss the second you look beyond that single line. These new guidelines are literally 9 pages. 9! The appendices from the last guidelines were 8 pages on their own. Brainworm Bobby didn't even have appendices in this one. They're pure confabulation. Bobby and his worm have ditched the My Plate breakdown designed to better visually communicate how to portion a balanced meal. Well, balanced if you account for the dairy lobby stapling a milk glass to the side. Since fascists are fixated on a prelapsarian ideal, obviously, Bobby rolled back the old school food pyramid. Sort of. He flipped it upside down, misunderstanding how pyramids work, so all 9 pages tell everyone to eat more protein with a weird fixation on nice old heart-clogging and increasingly expensive, despite the fact that their executives keep turning increasingly higher profits too. I wonder if it's not actually tied to inflation, but just greed. Beef! Honestly, I'm done even pretending this is a thing. The 2020 to 2024 guidelines still exist. Sure, the base myplate.gov site tells you have to go to Bobby's new site, realfood.gov. There is no way to roll my eyes enough. But you can still navigate myplate.gov just fine and get actual dietary recommendations, which are much less likely to kill you or merely send you into ketoacidosis. Oh, and the 2024 guidelines don't consolidate all chronic diseases ever into 2 single bullet points that amount to be healthy and you won't get sick, and eating a higher protein and fat diet will totally fix anything, but you gotta figure out the plan for yourself with your doctor. Guess what? Pet Play this week is... it's starting fun, and it's ending fun, but I make no promises about the interstitials. Oh, though I do need to bring up 2 stories which aren't here. Like, I'm not talking about them, but I guess I sort of am, but I'm not covering them fully. Because one, I saw too late to really throw in, and one is, well, I guess I am sort of reporting on it, but mostly to point out that this is so fake, y'all. The late one is that, okay, I'm a Digimon girly pup, and I don't think anyone is even remotely questioning that, but the Royal Base Robot Bees deck has been one of my personal pet decks in the Digimon TCG since it was introduced. It's never been terribly good, but I still love it. And Bandai finally showed off the EX11 bees late yesterday and early this morning, so expect something gushing about them soon, because, well, I can't play the game a ton. The new bees and Tamer are legit game-changing, at least for a massively underpowered deck that I happen to like anyway. The other story, which I'm not covering, though this is, I guess, sort of covering it anyway, whatever. That whole Threads thread, it was a thread posted on Threads about heated rivalry, the show about gay men in the notoriously homophobic NHL. Simple version, there was a 5-part thread about a gay man getting kicked out of a bar's watch party by uncomfortable straight women. Needless to say, while straight women being incredibly weird about actual gay men in relation to fiction, especially that written by a straight woman, Fujoshis, like Heated Rivalry, is... look, they have issues. It's the long documented thing. This particular instance did not happen. One, no Salt Lake bars posted anything about doing a Heated Rivalry watch party. There's no way on earth a bar event specifically catering to straight women, which, yes, any non-gay bar hosting a Heated Rivalry watch party is doing exactly that, would not be equally swarmed by straight and bi men, such that only a single gay man would be present. And for those of you with experience handling Tumblr fake stories, both those written for Tumblr clout and internal silliness, and those created by Redditors about Tumblr to mock them. Sarah Zed actually has a really great video about how almost all of the most famous fake Tumblr stories from Reddit are actually created by one dude with a weirdly hateful chip on his shoulder for Tumblrinas, by the way. It ticks all the red flags, but the biggest, which, God, it hit me like a fucking knife switch completing the circuit. The dude claimed as he was kicked out of the bar, everyone clapped. I'm like, that is literally this is a Tumblr fake story giveaway. Like, we are literally at the level of down with cis bus. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, wow, I envy you. But also, you should check out Strange Eon's YouTube channel. You're in for a wild, interesting ride. Back on Friday, we actually got some good news. Maddie Myers and Zoe Hanna, both longtime editors and writers in games journalism, but most recently of Polygon fame, are launching a new site. Mothership.blog is aiming to fully launch on January 26th as a gaming journalism site with an overtly feminist lens. To grab a line from Anna Valens, it looks a heck of a lot like Aftermath meets Flytrap, and I, for one, am very here for that. Leading up to the launch, they're running a 15% off lifetime sale on subscriptions to help pay the writers they've already pulled on board. Personally, color me intrigued. I probably gave the game away a bit with my Hulk Hogan comments on the last show, but this girly pup loves wrestling. In theory. I love it as a storytelling medium, but being aware of the background production elements kind of ruins a lot of it. I don't even just mean the way the WWE sucks. I do also mean just the way that so many wrestlers are contracted and can't get health insurance and have to pay for things out of pocket. And there's so many evil things about the way all of the systems behind everything work and run. But we're focusing mostly on how evil the WWE have been lately. Needless to say, I haven't really been keeping up with them since well before the first Saudi Arabian show, which is why I'm not terribly surprised, though still deeply horrified, to learn they're hosting the Royal Rumble in Riyadh on January 31st. But that sounds like an ad, and I wouldn't spit on the WWE's transitive blood money, so you know there's more to it than that. See, back on January 5th, u/Ripclaw posted what they alleged were photos of the still being built Rumble Stadium to the Squared Circle subreddit, the primary wrestling discussion subreddit. I feel safe in saying the pictures aren't generated by at least an AI. There's too many consistently maintained background details which move with the camera's perspective properly, which generative AI can never do, much less any of the weird artifacting or blending that we would normally see. Plus, there's, like I said, 4 pictures, and it maintains consistency too well. I can't necessarily verify that the pictures were actually taken in Riyadh where the poster claimed, but what I can tell you is, for some reason, very shortly after they were posted, the Squared Circle mods took the post down. Specifically, after it started gaining traction and folks started expressing A, growing concerns the stadium wasn't even going to be built in time, and B, pointing out that meant the stadium, and by extension the people in the pictures, were very likely slave labor and they were contributing to the build. The kingdom would prefer you call them indentured, but I'd prefer they face consequences for torturing a journalist to death and enslaving people. So I think what I'm saying is kennel the slavers? The same to the WWE executives dancing pretty with their fucking blood money. Fucking featherweight. Okay, look, I'm going to race through this because every time I have to talk about DC and trans folks, it just goes so well. I love getting yelled at by chuds. Yeah, on Thursday, many of us learned for the first time since firing Gretchen Felker-Martin, the trans woman and writer DC specifically headhunted. Again, she was fired for calling a dead Nazi. DC had 2 cis dudes write a trans misogynistic character in a shot for woke points. I could go over all the reasons Featherweight, the trans girl in a cat hoodie, Amazon basic skirt, and programmer socks with super strength she's uncomfortable with, is transphobic in the very I'm a good ally lib way, but I can summarize the points with one simple, argument of my own. Besides the whole DC fired an actual trans woman while having cis men write about us thing, Featherweight is near identical to the fan-created but now author-accepted art of Kathy, also known as Catherine or Boy Motor Sephiroth, one of the main characters of RCBG, aka one of the most popular serial fics of 2025, which satirized the internalized transphobia which bakes so completely into chronically online trans girls who don't feel safe existing as themselves in their physical lives. Since 2022, the artists Rocco and Parween have run the Digigirl Zine, an annual celebration of the women and femmes from all across the digital world with buckets of gorgeous fan art. And 2026 will be no different. They just opened up applications for this year's zine, link in the description. They'll be closing them on January 31st, so you've got a few weeks to get in. You can also find the previous 3 years of zines over on itch.io, link also in the description. I recommend you check it out. They always get great artists for this. On Friday, Autumn Wolff launched a Kickstarter for her new lesbian romantasy set in the same world as her novel, The Postman Becomes a Bunny Goddess in Another World. The new novel is... Autumn, girly pup, I love you, but these isekai titles are killing me. Is it wrong to fall in love with a reclusive wizard in a sky palace? I was going to recommend Autumn's Kickstarter because she's a great writer and basically an auto-recommend in my book. But since it funded in under 24 hours, I'm now recommending it as a pre-order for what will assuredly be a great book. The first 2 chapters, 4 if you go check out her Patreon, are already up on Scribblehub, and they're a really fun setup. Following a bard who's always on the move, never staying anywhere long until she rather suddenly loses any choice in the matter. Like a lot of Autumn's stories, it's wearing its inspiration, in this case Howl's Moving Castle, on its sleeve, but laying its own bones early, and I'll be excited to follow along as it goes. Oh, and to read the Athena-focused cozy bakery romance in Gunmetal Olympus, so B is finally forced to read cozy romantasy. For the record, I also finally read Memories of Olympus, also by Maria Ying, aka B/Devi. What the fuck are you on about? Not writing cozy shit. Its second short, The Forge and the Sepulchre, is a 12-damned cozy romance built on, admittedly Maria Ying branded trauma healing. Honestly, I'm really looking forward to anything Autumn writes, but especially that Athena bakery thing. That sounds delightful. She's yet to disappoint me, and I'm pretty sure she's also described That Night I Got Married to a Werewolf as cozy, and Autumn, does the girl dinner scene not disqualify it? If you know, you know. I am not explaining that. Oh, and because I honestly forgot about this, so good chance y'all did too. Nearly all of Autumn's existing books are currently in an itch bundle for the next 2 and a bit months. The giant Help Wolfie Maintain Housing bundle started after that whole thing where she was turned away at the Canadian border and was briefly homeless. God, isn't 2025, 2026 US great for trans women? It includes 16 of her currently 18 books and novellas, only for $30. All the links in the description. It's going to be a bit of a mess down there this week, sorry. And outro time. Sorry for the live audience. I obviously did not have most of my image work done, or any of it. A week away kind of broke my entire workflow. Sorry, got to get used to that again. There will be streams this week, I can say that much for sure, and tonight's community Discord movie night will be starting an hour early at 5 p.m. MST as we're watching the entirety of Has Been Hotel Season 2. Fair warning, it's not because it's great, but because Jules and I watched it and had so many narrative and musical issues that we're now planning our first co-written work and need to watch it again, this time taking notes. So we figured we'd rope the community in. Sorry? Also, while I was gone, I've been tearing through books. One of my New Year's bingo squares, I like to do a bingo card instead of a single big resolution. It makes it feel lower pressure, I guess, is to read more regularly. So instead of reading regularly, I tore through 7 books in the first 9 days of the new year. Well, 6.5, because I'm technically including finally finishing the back 50% of Kay Atkinson's A Sea of Silence. So expect written and video reviews in the next few days, or weeks for the video ones, of A Sea of Silence, as well as Keeping the Peace by Tris Husband, That Night I Got Married to a Werewolf by Autumn Wolff. Yes, we're talking about the girl dinner scene. I also reread both of Ella Bambust's Nexus Alpha books. Not me, I love some properly shamelessly horny mexploitation. And I finally got around to reading the second book's companion novel, Teeth, but I think I'll hold off on writing anything about those for the same reason I'm going to hold off on a more in-depth review of the other book I read, Memories of Olympus. Both settings are getting new books this month. Ella quietly dropped the bombshell that Nexus Alpha's third book, Nobody's Hound, will be releasing sometime this month, and that she expects to have the whole series wrapped by next summer. Admittedly, she said that on December 31st, so I think she means summer 2026, but not 100% sure. Anyway, she mentioned that in a Bluesky thread with the author of the Premier HRT Guide and Bluesky super user Katie Tightpussy. I love discussing the usernames that trans women give themselves. As for Gunmetal Olympus, we've known the Persephone Effect will release on January 29th for a while. I think we've learned that back in spring, which is part of why I was tearing through Memories of Olympus and why I'm currently reading Cersei Gray's Flower of the Underworld with The Zeus Constant by Callisto Khan, also now the third member of Maria Ying, if you know, you know, and a reread of the Hades Calculus queued up next, hopefully to be finished before the 29th, but we'll see. So yeah, there's all that. Plus, at the very least, I know for sure I'm going to be doing a Night Rain stream on Wednesday, though I'm going to try and do more throughout this week. I just don't have an actual schedule or anything done. As a reminder, everything that I do, written, video, or streamed, is brought to you by viewers, readers, and listeners like you over on patreon.com/Fen and coffee.com/Fen. I'm sorry, I know it's technically coffee, but it sounds so much better as coffee. Bite me. For as little as $1 a month. So thank you to April, Fragile Paper, Manfred, Pinball Witch, Pimento, Rose, Writer Princess, and Yalk. I quite literally could not do this without all of your support, as well as all of the support of those who follow on Twitch, subscribe on Twitch, and who subscribe on YouTube. Thank you all so very much. This has been a weird 5-ish months since I started doing this show, and I continue to remarkably enjoy it. So thank you very much for helping that, enabling that. Aside from the chuds, there's a lot of them, but for everyone else, you rock, including, very especially, the very first, actually, I guess not first, technically, the very last comment that I got on YouTube in 2025 was someone specifically mentioning how they never see anyone on YouTube talking about RCBG. Yes, I'm saying the acronym so that this won't get flagged on YouTube later. Since then, I've also had comments cropping up on months-old videos or even YouTube shorts talking about Nexus Alpha, Magica Riot Full Bloom, plenty of other trans literature. So look, there's going to be a more significant focus on trans literature going forward because I've always wanted to do that. But frankly, it didn't seem like there was a market for it on YouTube. But that's also why I have my own site. So we're going to do both. I was already kind of doing this last year anyway, but I'm going to make it a little bit more official and intentional. So yeah, I will hopefully see all of you next week. And again, for Wednesday night Wednesday Night Rain, and tonight watching Has Been Hotel in the Discord as Jules and I take prolific notes. Well, hopefully prolific notes. Have a great day, night, whatever time zone it is for you all, and I will see you again soon.